Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. I'm your teacher Simin Amir and today I'm here with another lecture. I hope everything is going well at your side. Let's start today's lecture. This is my lecture number 27 for grade trio. Today we have a history class and we have already started with chapter number 7 and the topic is Khilafat movement. The Khilafat movement was an agitation by Indian Muslims allied with Indian nationalism in the years following World War. It was started by some of the Muslim leaders like Shaukat Ali, Maulana Muhammad Ali Jauhar, Hakim Ajmal Khan, and Abdul Kalam Azad to restore the caliph of the Ottoman Caliphate. Its purpose was to pressure the British government to preserve the authority of the Ottoman Sultan as Caliph of Islam following the breakup of the Ottoman Empire at the end of the war. Now, the topic is the Khilafat movement and difficulty. On 8 July 1921, the All India Khilafat movement met for the third time, and it was the final time as well. It passed a series of resolutions which so offended or disappointed the British that the Khilafat leaders were arrested. The resolutions stated that no Muslim should attend British schools, serve in the police or army, or offer any form of cooperation to the British. As a result of their sedition, both the Ali brothers were imprisoned. Sedition means like the troublemaking. They had some troublemaking speech that led to some rebellism against the authority. The British were concerned that the Khilafat movement was a threat to law and order. And it is true that there were disturbances across India. In August 1921, there was an uprising by the Malfas in South India against the British and their Hindu landlords. Malfas were the Muslims, or we can say they were the members of the largest Muslim group in the Indian state of Kerala, and they were the Muslims in South India who claimed to be descended from Arab settlers. They rebelled in 1921 and declared a Khilafat kingdom. Several Europeans were killed, Hindus were attacked, and their houses and temples were destroyed. The British blamed this rebellion on the Khilafat movement. At Tirur is a town in the Kerala. Some 10,000 Malfas set the police station on fire and took arms and ammunition. Ammunition is like the bulk of the bullets. The British had to send troops in to end the uprising, and about 4,000 Malfas were killed. Perhaps the most famous incident occurred after that, which was known as the Chori Chora incident. On 5th February 1922, a violent outburst took place at Chori Chora in the Gorakhpur district of the United Province of British India. A large group of protesters participating in the non-cooperation movement clashed with police who opened fire. The demonstrators attacked and set fire to a police station, killing all of its occupants, and the event led to the deaths of 3 civilians and 22 or 23 policemen. The observance of the Independence Day in 1930 was followed by the launching of the civil disobedience movement under the leadership of Gandhi. Gandhi had already begun to have reservations about the wisdom of his civil disobedience campaign, which had resulted in disturbances in Madras, Calcutta, and Bombay. Now he decided that India was not yet ready for a mass campaign, and he called off the movement. His decision upset many Congress leaders. The Muslims too blamed Gandhi of retreating just when the Indian people were taking up the cause with enthusiasm. Like the Muslims accused him that he was changing the mind of the people when they were taking interest in their cause of civil disobedience and non-cooperation movement. The British saw how Gandhi's support had declined, and a few weeks after he called off his civil disobedience campaign, he was arrested and sentenced to 6 years imprisonment. The end of Khilafat movement. The decision to call off the civil disobedience campaign weakened the Hindu-Muslim unity, but the Muslims were determined to carry on with the Khilafat movement. Unfortunately, they cared more about the fate of the Khalifa than did the new ruler of Turkey. In 1922, the Sultan was deprived of political power. The Sultan who was the Khalifa in Turkey, he was deprived of political power. 2 years later, the new leader Kemal Atatürk abolished or terminated the Khilafat and exiled the Khalifa Muhammad V. It made no difference what Indians, Muslims, or British politicians wanted. The Turks themselves had abolished the Khilafat. Consequently, the Khilafat movement in India also came to an end. So it was obvious that the Khilafat movement came to an end when the new leader of Turkey, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, not only abolished the Khilafat, but also he exiled the Khalifa from Turkey. Reasons for the failure of the Khilafat movement. The Khilafat movement failed largely because of its members were more concerned with the fate of the Khalifa. They were more concerned about the safety of the Khalifa than were the Western powers and or the Turkish people. The Grand National Assembly of Turkey elected Mustafa Kemal Atatürk as their leader, and the new government of Kemal Atatürk simply abolished the Khilafat. Regardless of what anyone outside Turkey thought. This is why one historian has described the Khilafat as a wrong ideology, romantic and out of touch with actualities. Actualities means realities. Now here is this scene better than in the Hijrat of Afghanistan, where the Muslims were shocked by the lack of support from the Afghan government and they lost their enthusiasm. The Hindu-Muslim unity, which was achieved at Lucknow Pact, disappeared in the beginning of this movement and could not be recaptured. Although the Khilafat movement was another opportunity in which Hindus and Muslims worked together, their unity was probably always doomed to failure. The Hindus' aim of self-rule was not really an objective of the Muslims, like Jinnah spoke out against such a policy, and the Hindus were prepared to support the Muslims in protecting their religious rights only as long as it helped move India towards self-rule. Because the Hindus were concerned more about their self-rule or Savaraj, but the Muslims were concerned about the safety of their Khalifa. The extremist Hindu movement, Shuddhi and Sangathan, began converting the Muslims to Hinduism, which provided a new cause of bitterness between Hindus and Muslims. Gandhi also stressed that working with Hindus would reduce Muslim hostility towards the Hindu religion. The collective clashes and disturbances erupted in the country which adversely affected the political conditions of India. The movement also failed because of the strength of anti-British feeling that it created. Although the movement was based on saving the Khilafat, some supporters seized on Gandhi's policy of non-cooperation to demonstrate their opposition to British rule in general. The ensuing violence frightened Gandhi, who called off his campaign even before Kemal Ataturk abolished the Khilafat. Gandhi's action of calling off the non-cooperation movement at a moment when the government was about to take some major concessions was a severe setback to the movement. The government arrested all important leaders of the movement, which left the Muslims leaderless, who wandered aimlessly from one side to the other. The government, after arresting leaders, adopted cruel measures on the masses to quell their agitation or to calm their agitation. The impact of Khilafat movement. So there were some results of the Khilafat movement. Some of the impacts were positive, some were negative. Although the Khilafat movement had not saved the Khilafat, it did bring significant benefits to the people of India. So some of the benefits or the positive points were like the policy of non-cooperation with the British had united Muslims, Hindus and Muslims, and it showed that the Indian people were no longer prepared to accept British rule. Some historians see the Khilafat movement as the first step on the road that led to independence. The Khilafat movement was a great Muslim struggle which provided dynamic leadership to the Muslims and established foundation to launch further Muslim freedom movement on stable and fixed basis. It confirmed to the Muslim that the Hindu mind can never be sincere to the Muslims. That was a negative point as well. The Khilafat movement effectively demonstrated the religious enthusiasm of the Muslims to the British. The British now seriously felt of giving independence to India. The Khilafat movement made the Muslims realize that they had political power. They realized that they could organize themselves to demand their political rights. They were not the pets of the British and did not have to rely on either the Muslims, the Hindus, or the British to gain their rights. Indeed, the British opposition to the movement reinforced or strengthened the growing feelings that the British only accepted the need for Muslims to have rights when doing so did not contravene or violate other policies they were pursuing, like punishing Turkey. But there were also some very negative consequences of the Khilafat movement. Many unfortunate Muslims had given up their jobs in public services and many students had forsaken their studies as part of the non-cooperation policy established in 1920. Even more unfortunate were the Muslims who had tried to immigrate to Afghanistan. They lost their properties and everything. They returned home to economic misery. And the failure of the Khilafat movement and the joint efforts of the Hindus and Muslims to work towards a common objective drove a wedge between the two communities. Drove wedge means like they caused anger between the two friends. Communal rioting followed the calling off of the non-cooperation campaign, and hostility had increased. These events proved that the Hindus and Muslims could never live together in harmony. Therefore, the failure of the Khilafat movement could be seen as an important step in moving the Muslims nearer to have their own independent state. So we are done with this chapter. Now here is your assignment, the on the last page of your chapter, and these are exam type questions. The first question is, what was the Hijrat? So you have to just define what Hijrat movement was for 4 marks. Then why was the Khilafat movement founded? Now here you have to give at least 3 reasons in 3 different paras. How important was the Khilafat movement? Give reasons for your answer. Now you have to give all the importance of the Khilafat movement, and then which was perhaps the most um, important factor of the Khilafat movement. Then you have which is your the, which you have to mention in your conclusion. So this is your assignment. Do it in your neat notebooks. Thank you so much, dear students, for watching this video. I hope everything will be clear now. If still you have any query, any confusion, you can drop down your queries and questions in the comment box. I'll definitely entertain all your queries. We'll meet up again in another lecture. Till then, um, Allah Hafiz, and take great care of yourself. Please stay at home.